For some reason, the very first part of my audio didn't save on this one random clip. But basically, today, what I'm going to be showing you is that I ran into a bump when I was at school and I started freaking out and thinking that my whole entire project fell apart. And I got really nervous about that. And today's video is basically going to be me working through that bump until I get to a different place because I got really, really scared that like my entire theory just fell apart. But I was like, I know it can't have fallen apart because I know it works this way in chronic stress, but you'll see. But basically what happened is that I was really, really down, feeling like down on myself. And then I ended up going into my YouTube and I was just watching shorts like all sad. And then I ended up getting this video on my YouTube shorts. And I was saying, I feel like I've been getting this sign like every day through the things that I read that doesn't matter if you're inexperienced, you gotta just jump in. Like in my last video, I was reading my little daily devotionals, and the one of them was exactly about that. And then I got this on my YouTube Shorts, and it inspired me, so I'm just gonna share it. It was this. I said, nice thing to come onto YouTube Shorts on a day when I feel so close and also so inexperienced, and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And this is the video.
Credibility is something I never worried about. In the sense that I didn't care if people said, oh, well, she doesn't know any chemistry. It just went in this ear and out that ear, and served me well not to know too much. I think you can actually know too much that you talk yourself out of doing crazy things. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. Now, ignorance is not always a good excuse, but sometimes it works pretty well because you can take a very different approach to solving a problem if you don't know all the ways it can't be done.
That was insane. That was literally the exact thing that I needed to hear today. And it was not even like 10 minutes. I'll show you the dilemma I was having today. I have just been having like, I feel like I've been getting that message and that sign every single day from something in my life, like whether it be a book or like this or like, you know what I mean? Like it's just the message is coming through. And I feel like I've really needed to hear that message because I'm so close. But yeah, and it was so spot on specific today because I'm going to show you what my issue is. I was moving over texts, and it's kind of interesting because I went into this with literally no experience, like nothing, okay? Besides my own lived experience and just a general interest in psychology, and I had read about dissociative disorders for my undergraduate thesis. So I really came in with like nothing, and I've built up a lot of knowledge from there, right? And it's funny because I come back to old texts with more information. And I came back to this text. It was a rat text that I hadn't read for forever. And it was changes in brain dopamine and acetylcholine release during and following stress are independent of the pituitary adrenal cortical axis. And I didn't know what that was when I first read it. I wasn't even looking for that at all. Like, I was just looking to see if acetylcholine was like up and all this stuff, and it was. Okay. So then I came back to this paper, and the second time around, I read this, and that's kind of throwing me off because I'll show you what I have so far. Here's the thing is that my supervisor has been away because of like an issue, and I've been checking every day on his email to see if the automated reply is gone, like if he's okay and everything is fine. I hope everything's going okay with him, but he seems to still be gone. So I haven't reached back out to him in these weeks, and I feel like it's been kind of like a sign or whatever to really hammer in and get it like really solid, like really get the whole all the different parts of this equation sort of together. So when he comes back, there's not, it's like it's ready to go. So that's the sign that I've been kind of taking from this. And yeah, so this is the thing is that what I was saying in a few videos before is that I wanted to include negative feedback in my model. So basically, a negative feedback, when your brain starts to get stressed, if it's like a smaller stressor, it starts to send out cortisol. There's like a lot of different smaller issues with this whole thing. Like I have like different things I need to work on. For example, rather than okay, it doesn't matter. I'll come back to it. Basically, I was thinking, I was like, oh, I definitely wanted to include that, right? And the negative feedback. And then I was thinking like maybe that's basically negative feedback is when you start to get stressed, your brain sends out cortisol to stop the stress response, or to tell your body to like, okay, chill out, like it's fine. But in people with higher stress, like inescapable stress, chronic stress, the reason that it's more kind of stressful is that your brain can't take that sign because you're still in the stressor, and it starts to mess up how you're basically your that system is sending out cortisol, so it starts to overproduce it and then all these different things. And I thought that was going to be like a good hinge essentially for the difference between one model and the other, is that in one model negative feedback works and then the other one it doesn't, right? Actually, I think I freaked out too much. I think that's still fine, but actually this is a thing, is that when I was reading this, I don't know, actually, I think I got too worried about it because I actually wasn't planning on connecting negative feedback to acetylcholine. But what this was saying is that changes in brain dopamine and acetylcholine released during following. Oh, I actually still kind of had it. I was really worried that I was like, oh, I got it messed up, because it was basically saying that this release of acetylcholine does not have anything to do with the HPA axis. Like they're completely separate things. Actually, I thought that I had connected them, but I really didn't, because I was saying it's connected to the amygdala. And so that is still true because I read that in a paper. You can see the panic that ensued after this of finding papers, but it's kind of good because I ended up finding other papers that I think might be good information still about how acetylcholine and the amygdala work together, and talking about fear conditioning. I don't fully know if they're going to be relevant and if I'm going to want to include them, but I thought I'd check, and I was just getting kind of like a stress like, oh, the other reason that I was kind of confused is because this is the thing that I've been trying to figure out how to include, is that in every single paper that I read with these rats, what happened is they were stuck in inescapable stress for like X amount of time. It went all the way up, and then it stayed up for a while, like much like a while, but then starting to go down, and then went all the way down over like the first hour. It went down because what happened is the rats got used to it. But in all of the papers that I read with this kind of protocol from back then, what basically happened is then they left and the acetylcholine went back up. I think there's like multiple different things going on. I've been kind of like tied up with like, how do I do this? How do I facilitate that response? And is it appropriate or is that not appropriate to facilitate that response? And then I got nervous. Like, this is a thing, is that in all these papers, what was happening is that after the brain was still releasing acetylcholine for like longer and longer periods of time, the more the stress was stressful, right? My challenge is that I definitely think that everything I'm saying across the board fits very well in a chronic stress kind of framework, but I got a bit nervous that it wasn't going to show up well enough, or it wasn't appropriate. Like, because my whole theory is that after stress, your brain is still like, these things are still elevated. So basically, the rats that are just in acute stress, they have like all this time to basically, I wish I could point at the screen. So the medium stress rat, let's see if I can draw. What they had is that it basically went up like this, right? And then like this, and then just stayed like this, like normal, right? But with all of these inescapable stress rats in these papers, okay, I don't care. What the heck? Okay, basically what happened is that they went up, right? So what I'm saying, unfortunately, this thing is really annoying, is that if a rat has something like this going on, all of this time here, okay, it's being really annoying, but basically what I'm saying is that like all this extra time that it's down, they have to consolidate. Meanwhile, the restraint rats in theory, like they are still having elevations and stuff, so they can't actually consolidate until after the acetylcholine goes down. I'm just still thinking about that and like, how do I put that in? What I'm saying is that in the chronic stress rats, for sure, the more chronically stressed the rats were, the longer it was taking for acetylcholine to go down. So basically, their system was showing that the acetylcholine, even though the stressor was over, it was still up and up and up and up, because the brain, they had a lot of different hypotheses. I guess your brain was getting habituated to the fact that like maybe there's another stressor coming, so keep it up to just in case, stuff like that. They had all these different reasons why they thought that, but that was pretty across the board. I just don't know how to put that in my thing. And at first I thought it'd be like maybe it's a negative feedback thing, but I actually, okay, this is just a little bit of like a messy this is a messy intro, but this just shows you where my head was today with my whole paper. I think I actually have more right than I think right now. And I got really stressed out when I read this for some reason. I was like confused because what was interesting, let me find it, is that okay, so this is a difference is that basically acetylcholine is an arousal chemical. It's not a danger or a stress chemical. Like no matter what you're learning, it's going up. It's just that people always did see it up in a in a different way with stress, okay? But what they're saying is that maybe it doesn't really have anything to do with whether it's good or whether it's bad. I don't know. I think I'm just confusing myself too much. I just read this and I got nervous because it was just saying that they were very different things. I think I started overthinking it. I think it's like that video said. It's like sometimes you start to get what she said was like let's see the quote again. It's you can take a different approach to problem solving if you don't know the ways it can't be done. And I think that I'm getting to the point that I'm starting to get a little bit more like into it and I'm overthinking like more as I go along. But I think I need to stop overthinking. I think I'm just overthinking too much. But okay. We're gonna take a break from it because clearly I overthought too much today. I have a lot of papers open. I think they're good because it'll back up certain things, so that's fine. But I just really had a moment of nervousness when I saw that because I need to figure out why on earth the acetylcholine is going up. If I even should include that, is that relevant to include? Will that say anything about trauma, or will it say anything about the just experimental procedure? And then I know that acetylcholine takes longer to die down, but is that still an acute stress? And I've just been having all these annoyances where I'm like, I know this mechanism that I'm imagining would be very, very relevant in a chronic stress version, but I'm just getting nervous about it actually showing up in my paper. But yeah, I just have a lot of different papers that I opened today and like my stress. And it's like the thing with this computational neuroscience stuff, it's like I don't know what I don't know. And it kind of gives me stress because I'm like, how much? No, this is my big question that I always have. You could include everything, right? You could include, like, you know what I mean? If I were to make the most absolutely detailed model in the entire world of like the CA3, like, I think that I'm nervous that I need to do that somehow, where it's like, yeah, but it also does this and does this and does this. It's like, do I really need to put everything in it? I don't. But I'm just getting nervous that there's something that like, oh, that should be there, where it's like, I guess that's not how it works. And I think I'm just overthinking it, where it's like, well, that is part of it and that is part of it, but it's like, but you don't need to put everything in there. Like, you can just put your stuff, I think. And so, yeah, it is just a little bit of like this anxiousness of like, I don't feel like I know what I'm doing enough, but like I'm this far in that like I need to do this. And then I actually, this was a good thing, is that in doing this, I actually found some more updated papers on stress and hippocampal ACH. This was a really, like, I haven't read this yet, but I'm so happy I found this. This was 2006, so it's a little bit more recent. Extracellular hippocampal ACH level controls amygdala function and promotes adaptive conditioned emotional response. I think that would be really good information. And then I found some other ones, like, it's interesting that this ACH increase stuff actually is very connected to depression, but that's for another time. See, I found another one, hippocamp. This one's a very much more recent, I think, 2022. So hippocampal ACH modulates stress-related behaviors independent of specific cholinergic inputs. So it's good because people are still backing that relationship to stress. So that did make me happy, and I did find that because I was so stressed about that paper, even though there's nothing to stress about. So if anything, everything is just putting, like, everything brings you higher, but I was just really nervous for a minute. But now I do have more papers to back that are recent, which is good. And then I think I found another one. I'm really interested. So there's even people are saying that this is happening in schizophrenia, which I'm not surprised that an arousal chemical that's making the patterns in your brain get really, really spread out and all this stuff. When you're learning, I was like, it did not surprise me that that was connected to this. And I want to read at some point because a lot of people actually get psychosis like symptoms in response to a stressful situation or trauma. And I'd be very, very interested to study that at some point in time as well. But yeah, I mean, it seems like people are already making a connection. And then these are all videos that I basically have open about synaptic tagging, which I'm going to watch today so that I can understand it deeply. And then I'm going to try to fix up that part in my paper so that it's like, okay, that's good to go. Yeah, the other thing I actually did work like quite a bit in my classes today. I just sorted out my conclusion section a bit. It's still like very rough drafty, but I just kind of these are the things that I think I'm going to find backing for. So I just went ahead and kind of drafted them for when it's ready to go, like it's ready to go. You get me? Because I already had things I wanted to talk about. And I just included some of my stuff. So yeah, that made me feel better. Like it's really coming along, which is cool. And I wrote down future directions about like scopolamine, closed loop simulation, we should do more, chronic stress, reconsolidation. So it's just coming along, but I've been a little bit nervous. Yeah, so I think today I'm going to finally try to deeply understand synaptic tagging capture. I really hope my advisor is okay, everyone in his family is okay, and I hope he comes back soon because I just feel like I'm like kind of stumbling around in the dark a little bit, and it's like it's been a good stumble. Like it's it's like a very productive and like high quality stumble, but I just this it's so funny because this whole time I'm like, I just want somebody to look at this and to like do something with me. And it's like it just feels like I just keep working on it on my own, which is good, but it's like I get scared because I'm like, I don't know if I like you know what I mean? It's like I want that backing of like, well, maybe you should add this or take out that or and I've been feeling like I'm just stumbling around in the dark and that really kind of has been making me nervous. But here's the other good news, last thing, and then I'm gonna make my ramen. I now only have 3,000 words left to hit my basic word count for empirical projects. So I'm almost done. I'm in essence almost done with my empirical projects in January and it's due in August. So yeah, but yeah. I'm in a good mood now, but this was probably like this was a really, really annoying day actually. I had like so many annoying things happen today, but what I'm gonna do now is yeah, I'm probably just gonna turn on I've really gained a lot of like I would say a good amount of weight doing this project. Like I'm usually a very active person. Like I always had a really active exercise routine. Even when I had a really small room or if I just had my dorm room, I always would work out like at least 2 times a week, 3 times a week in my room and I just walked a lot. Like I'm just a very active person usually and I'd say pretty well for the most part, but I've been gaining weight and this morning I was just putting on I was trying on my jeans and then like all my jeans were just tight or like some of them didn't even fit at all and that's been kind of like been kind of weird for me because this is probably the most physically inactive I've been and I've also been stress eating through this project like quite a bit. And then I just stepped on a scale for the first time in a while today, like just a while ago, and I was like, oh whoa, like I've not I don't think I've ever weighed this much, like maybe not since high school. And it's not that bad, but I think it's been a really good time for me to reflect actually on the fact that like just through this project, like that body image is not everything. Or not body image, body image is important. That your weight is not everything. And also that your looks are not everything. And it's been a really cool chance, I think, as a young woman to do a really big science experiment like this and to do this much research. It's been really special and it's given me a different type of self-esteem that I didn't have before. And I try to remind myself that this body is like a vessel that's carrying my soul inside of it, and that my soul is going to go through all sorts of different adventures in life, and that my soul isn't just to appease others or to look good for people, and that sometimes there's things that are more fulfilling to your soul than just looking skinny or whatever. And I've just been trying to take that mentality because I've just it's been this project and this time in life has been very stressful, like been very demanding. Like I work a lot. I have like a job, I have my master's degree program, and I have this, and I try to take time for self-care, but also at the same time, like I'm just tired, like when I'm not doing all that stuff, like I'm tired. And also this has been the first time since all of my traumatic experiences, I think, that I've given my body like I've just given my body more permission to rest and to be a bit more still and to sleep more and just all that. I think I've just been a little bit more still. And I just grew up, particularly like middle school, high school, like I cared a lot about my weight. And I used to think that I looked so like chubby, all this stuff. And I look back and I just looked normal, but I just used to think that I really didn't like my weight and I didn't like how my body looked at all. And I put a lot of effort into it in college, you know, like I that's when I really started working out and I put more effort into my appearance and all this stuff. But I just feel like recently that just hasn't been my priority. And it's not that that's not a priority for me as a person, but just that I have like a bigger goal to reach, you know? And yeah, again, I think as a woman, I just try to remind myself that like my body isn't you know, my body is for a lot of different things. My body just isn't just for looking nice. And also that once this project is done, it'll be nice to focus on that again and put my appearance a little bit more at the forefront. I don't even feel like I've been eating more. Like I actually just got the amount that of weight that I gained, like probably like maybe 30 pounds, honestly. Like I've never gained this much weight and it doesn't show too much, but it really like it's a noticeable difference though for me and for like my clothes. Like my clothes don't fit and stuff and my clothes look different. And I didn't know that I didn't know that I gained that much weight. Again, I don't think that's a bad thing per se, but I was just like I was like, "Oh, I guess I should be keeping track of something because, you know, it's just a big difference for my body." And but I went to see how much I ate today and I like, you know what I mean? I was like, it's not, I feel like it's really more that I'm usually a very active person. Yeah, I've just been trying to be like more okay with like giving my body the whole, I feel like a lot of this journey right now of like the last year has been like just giving my soul what it needs and and not worrying about what's on the surface as much. And I just really needed this. So I feel happy with that. And yeah, it'll be fun once it's done. It'll be like another adventure to like get more active because I feel like I've gotten a little bit like heavy still, you know, stuff like that. So it'll be fun, but also just trying to love my body as it is and not worry too much about that. It's okay. But like my face changed and stuff like that. So it's been like kind of interesting. Like I haven't really had this hasn't been the weight that I've been for a long time. So it's interesting. But yeah, I've been trying to teach myself as I get older to see fluctuations like that as neutral. You know, it is interesting. It's like, oh, it's interesting. I've never this is a new body to me right now. Cause I that's something I really want to pass on to my kids one day is like food is neutral, your bodies are neutral. Bodies are bodies. Like we put this whole thing of attraction on them, but bodies are just bodies and food is just food. And I really needed I had to teach myself that because I had kind of a bad relationship to food when I was younger. And you know, I think I really want to pass that on to my kids that I never want them to look at their own bodies and you know I just want them to always like their own bodies. So I was like I need to thinking about my future children is such good inspiration for me because it's like if I can't do it myself, like how am I going to pass it on to my kids? And I've been trying like now in this age I try to think about how I want my kids to live and then I try to think like how do I start transforming my own lifestyle into that? Like it's very important to me. Like I don't want to raise kids that are on iPads and just constantly doing that kind of stuff. And I had like a bad social media addiction. And that was one thing that I started thinking this like in college. I was like, I don't want my kids to be like iPad babies. And I was like, well, if I can't even stop my own social media addiction, then how would I expect my kids to, you know what I mean, to be less doing that less than me? Because you can't be modeling one behavior and expect your kids to pick up the healthy one. And it's like, I guess I should first end my own social media addiction so when I'm with them, I'm present and I'm you know, they see me reading and they see me doing that kind of stuff. So I've been trying to do that. Who knows what technology will be like when I have kids, but that's just really important to me that my kids learn to be bored and that they, you know, we always look back on our childhoods and sometimes you look at kids. I know it's like kids these days, whatever people always say, but I do think there's a pretty drastic difference in terms of the kind of childhood that children now have versus the childhood that I think majority of children had over like the 20th century and like early 2000s and stuff. And they're just so adult. That's the thing that strikes me is that so many of them are so into like stuff like skincare. I didn't even know what skincare was when I was in middle school. I didn't think about that till high school. And I didn't have like a 10-step Korean skincare. I wasn't doing retinol. I had like an apricot scrub. And I definitely misused that and didn't use it all the time and all this different stuff. So kids are so preoccupied and you can't shield your kids from the world, but it makes me sad for this generation because it's just I can't imagine being 7 and getting like wanting to do like my skincare today videos, and it's like they're obviously emulating us adults, and it's like you don't need to emulate, and it's I just think it's sad, and like I want to give my kids the gift of like that kind of childhood that you look back on and you're like I'm like being a child was so nice and so fun. It's like you kind of rob kids of their childhood when they're doing what is there left to enjoy as an adult if you're doing adult things when you're a kid. It's like there's nothing, it's fun to get older and be like, oh, now I'm into skincare, now I'm into this. It's like that's kind of the fun of getting older. But I think that kids like they have it from such a young age that it's not really that exciting. It's like I want them to be excited about some things when they get older. So I was like, I need to embody that. And usually I eat very healthy. Chapaghetti I haven't had chapaghetti in years. It was really good though, but I don't usually eat. I do my best to eat healthy, but obviously, I eat sweets and stuff too. Like I eat a lot of sweets. That's why I gain so I've been stress eating a lot of sugar over the course of this project, which is something that I didn't eat growing up very much. We didn't have sweets at home. Again, for better or for worse, because I think I got a bit addicted when I got older. Because it's like I never had this when I was a kid, but at the same time, it's like I want to demonstrate to my kids like eating a very varied diet, being kind to people of different cultures, seeing our bodies as neutral. I never want to be the kind of parent that has like some intense reaction to their child's weight. Obviously, if my kids are being unhealthy with food, it's like we'll have a conversation, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's like kids fluctuating weight and all this stuff. It's like I just don't want that for my kids. And I've been trying to have that conversation with me that I would want to have with my kids and just be like, it's not everything and that's okay. And there's more to you than that at the end of the day. And there's more to you than your looks or I've been struggling. I think a lot of everything is just stress because I started struggling with like hormonal acne that I never had like college, even really in high school. Like really like my skin has just not been the best. All this stuff and yeah, I just think I haven't been as healthy as I typically try to be and all this stuff, but like I try to look very neutrally at that. And also I heard that even when you're kind to kids about their bodies, but you're mean to your own body or you talk negatively about your own body, it's like they learn that and that affects them as well. If you have a parent that's constantly like, I'm so ugly, I look so bad, you kind of internalize those kinds of things. And so I try to, for my own self, I try to be positive to myself and at the very least neutral. I don't need to be positive, but I can be neutral and I don't need to sit there and obsess over my looks and stuff. And, it's like that they are what they are right now. And these are things I had to teach myself because I didn't see it that way when I was younger, at all. And I think that that's been it. I try to see every single part of my journey as an opportunity to pick up something or heal from something or whatever, or, rewrite something. And I think it's been a good time for me to rewrite. I've been saying like I feel like this whole period of my life has been like my second puberty because I have changed so much and it's been kind of like an awkward period where I'm growing. I feel like I'm developing so much in a different way and it's really been like a second puberty for me. And when I was going through puberty, I really was so negative to myself and all this different stuff and it's been like almost spiritually like a return to that mindset that I was in puberty. And this time around, like how would I want to speak to myself? How would I want the me who went through puberty to actually see myself, your body is neutral, gaining weight. Like not panicking over the weight gain. I think that's like, okay, it's part of life and it happens, and weight just goes up and down. Like, it's not that big a deal. Anyways, I'm gonna try to like cut some stuff out here. The further along I go in this project, I usually would massively say that I do see non-pathological dissociation as dissociation. My opinion has kind of changed over time as I've read everything throughout this project. I don't know if I personally see it as I don't know if I see it as dissociation anymore. I think I see it as just intense immersion. The only thing that makes me see it differently is probably like cultural context, like possession trances. I still see why they're called dissociation. And, they kind of still share a similarity with dissociative disorders in a way, because you kind of have a part in it. Like, there's like an emotional part in it. I don't know, actually, it's a little bit different, but the only thing that I think that this like dissociation in like a possession trance context, I do see that as dissociation, obviously. I don't know if I'd say that only trauma is dissociation, but I'm not gonna lie, I just kind of, I think that like stuff like zoning out, getting really immersed in a movie, all that stuff, I think it's just really, really deep immersion. I don't know if I see it as dissociation per se, but I kind of go back and forth on that because at first I was really believing that. I don't know. Yeah, I think I've just gone back and forth. I always think about like what are the main qualities that are really important to me for when I have my own kids. One of the biggest things is that I really want to raise kids that feel okay being different from the crowd. Not even in the sense of like, oh, I'm special or different, but I don't want to raise children who are going to be followers that are always following other people and that can't stand up for the things that they care about. I want to raise kids who can stand up for people that are struggling. If they see a kid in school that needs support, that they're going to go and actually support the child, things like that. Because I always want them to know that they don't have to say yes, or they don't have to go along with what everybody says, and that they can have their own opinion. And I think that's going to come down to letting my kids have their own opinion and stand up for what they care about in my own house, which is going to be a challenge because I think, like, from what I've noticed, I think a lot of parents want to, like, it's hard because like you want to, it adds that level of like, okay, now you have to have a real conversation. Now you have to like yourself be challenged and respect your child's voice in the house. But I want my kids to feel respected by me. Obviously, I care for my kids to respect me, but I want to respect them as well, and to have respect for them and respect for the things that they care about, and they're human beings too. Doesn't mean that I don't have to step in, but like, it's like I think that's my thinking on how to raise kids that are gonna have that quality outside of their house and in the real world, because I just think there's too many followers in the world. And this is the thing. I grew up lower income, all these different things, right? And I always think, I'm going to move up, I'm going to have a nicer job, and my kids are going to have a very different life from the life that I had as a child. They're probably going to get a lot more things handed to them than I did, and all these different things. And they're just probably going to have different life than me. And I just don't, I want them to be cognizant of their position in the world and to never take that privilege for granted, and to never see that privilege as an excuse to stop sort of, like I want to raise kids who understand their own privilege and don't see it necessarily as they're bad, but see it as a gift that they can share with other people. That's like a big thing for me. How grateful, like how much of a gift is it? Like, I want to raise kids like we're going to go to homeless shelters and feed people. Like, I want to go out and do that kind of stuff with my kids because I want them to be cognizant of their position in the world, and to see it as a gift. Like, how great that we have money, how great that we have all these nice things. That's amazing. And like, let's go out and share it with people, and let's go out, and if you see somebody who needs support, you go support them. And I don't want to raise kids who are embarrassed. This is one moment that I always remember with my mom. And granted, we grew up lower income, so it wasn't like we were like, rich kid, like not at all. We weren't even middle class. Like we were on EBT cards probably at this point. We were on EBT cards for a lot of my childhood. You know, people brought us food from church. Like we really didn't have that much money. And one time I was driving around with my mom and my sister and I would play this game that we'd you know, like you point to like a random like abandoned house in the middle of the highway and you're like, that's your house, you know? And I pointed at somebody's like trailer or something like that. And I was like, that's your house. And my mom checked me. Like she turned around and was like, you know, don't say that about another person's house. Like, I don't remember the exact words that she said, but she was just kind of like check me on the fact that like we shouldn't be rude to people who are in that kind of position, right? I'm privileged because even though we grew up lower income, we had a I mean, our house wasn't perfect, but I mean, it was amazing. We had a great house. We moved to the US in the recession and we got like it was like a big old house, like a very like I don't know if it was Victorian, but it was like an old house and we had two floors and you know, a stairway. A lot of people don't have two floors in their house. And we each had our own rooms. You know, we had lots of space. We had a living room, we had a big backyard, all of that. And that's a privilege. And I think it was actually that moment. I felt really guilty when my mom like kind of checked me, but it's good. I think it's good to check your kids sometimes when they say things like that. And I always remember that and like to be compassionate to people who, you know, are struggling in a different position than me. And, you know, my kids will have even more privileges, at least financially, than I did and will probably have a lot of things that I didn't grow up with. I want them to know that and to know that not everybody has that and it's a gift. It's a great thing, but you know, I think that's very, very important. And I worry one of my big things is I don't want to raise kids that are spoiled or entitled. And I know my kids won't be. They're gonna be good kids, like I know, but I'm just saying like that's like a thing that it's like a moving up anxiety, you know? It's like, okay, I'm moving up in the world and that means my kids are gonna have a different like you just start thinking like they're really gonna have a different life than you, and then you gotta think through that and like what's that gonna be for them and all these different things. But you also can't have that as a resentful thing because that's amazing. Like they should. Doesn't mean they're bad. Another thing that I appreciate from our childhood that I didn't at the time and now I enjoy it. I mean, I appreciated it, but it made me feel awkward. Was that when I was younger, we grew up around a lot of different types of people. And we were always in spaces where I grew up in, I went to move through different spaces where I was a minority as a white person, like, you know, high school, even middle school. But then, even for example, like my dad was Buddhist, is Buddhist. And for New Year, and sometimes the other times, we would go to a Buddhist temple, and it was mostly Vietnamese people, like really strong majority Vietnamese people, and they had Vietnamese food after the service and everything. And at the time, I felt really awkward. Like I felt like very like this is not our space, and it was very awkward to be in that context for me as a kid. But I think looking back, I really appreciate moments like that that we were around. This is another one is I had a like I said, I have a close friend from Myanmar, and when I was little, I'd go to her house and like for her birthday and stuff, I would be the only white person. She would invite her whole family, and she had a big family. I feel like people from non-Western cultures, like they'll be having like, you know, they'll be keeping track of like they got the whole family there, the whole community there, and she'd have her whole family and they'd be praying like in I don't actually know the name of the language that they speak in Myanmar, but there's a lot of different ethnic groups from Myanmar. I had multiple different friends. I had multiple different friends from Myanmar. So like through my church. So I know one of them is Chen and one of them is Karen. I don't know who's like I actually forget who's from what group, but anyways, I would go to their house and yeah, I was like, literally the only white person there and I would feel awkward, I'm not gonna lie, but I think it was good for me. Again, it's like a lot it really taught me to like be cognizant because we don't notice when we're white, we don't often notice that like we are the majority and how awkward it is sometimes for like to be in an all white space and then there's like that one minority there. And it's like I think that being a minority sometimes in non-white spaces actually like and it's still a very different dynamic too because of the power imbalance, but I think that it showed me like, okay, be cognizant and like how awkward sometimes it can feel to be a minority, but also to enjoy other people's cultures and just like be in their group and be in their space. And to not feel awkward and to like, just let people be like have their own culture, I guess. It's just a different vibe when you're like the only white person there and it's like what? It was always really fun. Like she always their family would make the biggest feast and my friend said that she appreciated it about me. This is also something we got from my parents. We lived in Peru and we were like also like the little white kids, I guess there, but that's a little bit of a different context. I was really young. I don't really remember feeling that difference, but we just grew up around a lot of different cultures and my sister and I are not picky. Like we would eat anything under the sun. To this day, like I love eating food from other people's cultures and my friend would said she really appreciated when I go to her house. They'd make the most delicious, like very like traditional food from Myanmar and they'd make like a lot, like their cultural food. And they'd have like leaves and stuff like wraps that they would grow in their backyard and like all these different things. They'd make very delicious food. And I was always happy to eat the food at their house because it was delicious and like what, but it would be like a feast. But she said she appreciated when I went to her house. Like I was not picky. Like I'd just be eating anything that they put in front of me because it was so good. She said that made her feel good because she said a lot of white people don't want to eat their food. But I think that we really got that influence from our family. Like that's something I appreciate also about how we grew up. Like we were not chicken nugget kids. No, not at all. Like we would just eat, we were just not picky. And I think it's good to expose kids to different cultures and to expose them young and to have them try new things, try different things and not feel like people from other cultures stuff is like, ew, what's that? That's gross. That's weird. Like we just never had that relationship. Every New Year we'd go to the Vietnamese temple. We didn't always go for the service. I mean, my sister and I felt really awkward. Like we wouldn't always go in and my parents knew that we felt a bit awkward, but they were adults and they kind of didn't. But we would always go and say a little prayer, leave some incense to like the sculpture, and then we'd go eat dosa. We'd go eat dosa, the Indian restaurant. That was our New Year tradition every year. And yeah, just like I just feel like we always kind of grew up eating a lot of different stuff. So I want my kids to have that too. I definitely think they will. Yeah, I just want them to always be respectful of other people's culture and also curious and have that curiosity. That's a big thing is I just want confident kids who not confident as in like I'm a baddie, but like confident in the sense that they don't feel afraid to go out into the world and to try things and to tell people like what needs to be said and all this stuff. That's up to me. That's doesn't mean they have to be like crazy out there or like oh like I'm a big personality. I'm not like that. I'm an introvert for the most part, but I just mean I want them to feel like that confidence in their own voice. You get me? Where it's like, okay, I want you to be able to speak your mind if you need to speak your mind. At least you don't have to follow the crowd. If you don't want to do something, you don't have to. All these different things. I think even though our childhood was a little bit cray cray, my sister and I both turned out pretty good. And I think that I feel like if you can just pass along, like, my parents, like, nobody's perfect, but I would say my parents are good people. And I think they have a strong sense of character that they move through the world with. And I think that that's what my sister and I took away from that. And because of that, we have been successful in life. Also, my parents, both of them they're ambitious, I think, and they're very active and interested in the world. We always had a lot of good conversations and just active conversations about society and about life. I wouldn't say that we perfectly agreed with everything in terms of like, I don't think we were always perfectly connected on every situation, like, and no relationship is perfect or anything like that. But I think one way that we always connected as a family is that we had interesting conversations a lot. Like, I think some people really struggle to connect with their kids like we would just like in the morning at breakfast, like we just go off talking about like we have long conversations about like politics and religion and all this stuff. They just happened naturally. They weren't forced. Like I think everyone in my family's just interested and we just had good conversations like that. And my sister and I just grew up very interested in the world and interested in learning and all this stuff. And we had a lot of books at home. Apparently there's been actual research that shows that really sets you up for life. And we had a lot of books at home, a lot of like, we're always kind of flipping through books or whatever. Yeah, and I think my parents just like had cool interests and stuff, and we were kind of along for the ride, and they were active in our city. Like we go to a lot of different events in our city and stuff like that, and that was a gift. Like we go to in Richmond, we have First Fridays. Every first Friday of the month, they'd have like all these galleries would stay open late, and a lot of times you go to First Fridays because my parents were really active in the art community in my city. That was like most of our childhood was my parents were very active in the art community. My mom is an artist, and my dad and my mom had an arts nonprofit for a few years in a school bus. They started themselves, the Virginia Center for Latin American Arts, and then they had to end because their bus got sold like stolen. Like they sent it off to get fixed, and they had renovated this whole school bus, like a wooden floor and all this crazy stuff, and it was really cool. It was like a mobile art gallery kind of, and they took it to get fixed, and it got like the people drove it across the country and like sold it for parts. Like it was really unfortunate, but that was our childhood as we went to that a lot from like elementary to like late middle school. We'd be doing that all the time, and we'd go to like they had a spot in our like downtown that they'd stop the bus and they'd do events there, and we would go to First Fridays and see art and stuff. I just think my sister and I, even though we didn't have a lot of money, my both my parents were very interested in poetry and art and all this stuff, and they talked about it a lot, and like a lot. Like they were always talking about like that kind of stuff, and we were just kind of there for the ride, I guess, and we would go to their stuff with them, and again, things that you look back on and you're like, I think that was probably good for us mentally. So my sister and I are very like we both have like our thing that we're just like we're into our thing and we're doing our thing and we're very passionate about our thing. And my parents are both also kind of they're quirky, I would say. Like, yeah, I would say both my parents are pretty quirky. I don't know if quirky is the right word. That's not really the right word. I don't even like the word quirky myself. People who used to call me quirky, I was like, I don't know if I like quirky. My parents are like unconventional. I don't know. They're very unique people, I think, in terms of the kind of way they move through life. And I think that my sister and I both have that too, that we have our own personalities and we just have that energy to us. Like we just I think we never cared too much to do what everybody else was doing. My sister's really into fashion, but this is the thing I like about my sister's style, and that we were talking about this the other day. A lot of people complimented her on this. Her style is very unique. Even though she's like a fashion student, like her style is very unique. It's not the kind of stuff that you just see on TikTok that all the fashion girls are wearing this, so she's wearing this. Like she has a very cultivated fashion that's very based on her unique interests and her like niche stuff, and she's just a very unique person. I would say she's got a very unique vision, and I would say I'm a unique person as well in the fact that I don't feel like I stick to the status quo of what my life should be all the time. And I'm obviously I wasn't afraid to just go off on my own and go on this like crazy little side journey that like nobody told me to do this, but I was just like, yep. And it's not really the status quo of what everybody else is doing right now, or like my you know what I mean? Like it's just my own thing, and I think that we learned that from our parents for sure. It was fun to see them have a unique project and do their unique stuff and not really not really like stick with the status quo that much. And I think we always had strong opinions. Like my sister and I have very strong opinions. My dad, we always grew up watching him have strong opinions, and they just have like these really kind of like strong personalities. Not strong personalities. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but they're just about something. And I think my sister are both very like about something. Like we don't feel like very like lost in ourselves too much. Like we wanted to go out into the world and like get our own thing done and have something that's very attached to like us and who we are and what we're about. And like I just think that that's something that we learned from our family. I would say I'm pretty different from my family in a lot of ways though. Okay, now this is really like in rough draft mode because everything is in a this is like the length of the dissociation section. I still have to minimize. I'm so lazy. I'm really lazy to work on the dissociation section, which is why I'm working on it now. But Just looking at it makes me tired. I think I'm generally tired. I keep feeling like I'm not doing enough on this, but I already worked on it earlier today as well. But I just feel like there's so much left. There's like so much left to go. I'm just nervous because I really want to have something ready for my advisor when he meets with me, but um I feel like there's a missing piece. Again, I got lazy to watch the videos on synaptic tagging because I was watching Two Broke Girls and I didn't feel like pausing it, but I think if I read that again, like I think if I go into that, I'll get a lot more information and then it's just missing that one piece. Over this weekend, that's our goal is to find the missing piece of this model, which is the acetylcholine kind of fading off or kind of going up again. And then I did find quite a few papers on fear extinction. I'm gonna copy paste them in, which I hate doing, but unless I close them, which is very possible. Okay, I guess I closed them, but I found just some more papers on fear conditioning that's gonna be a part of this. Maybe I'll get inspired later and watch those videos, but I don't know. It's 8 p.m. I have work. I've been doing my side job a little bit because of like money. I just took some spare shifts because I needed money. Um, Unfortunately, I needed to go to this job, but I have to wake up at like 7:30 a.m. again. I was so grumpy this morning. I've been waking up at 7 a.m. every morning for this week for like class. I had exam on Monday, side job second Tuesday, class Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday I have this job, which it's normally not bad, but yeah, I've just been kind of tired because I think I just haven't adjusted. So I was so grumpy this morning and I couldn't find the coffee and I was about to go insane. But yeah, anyways, okay, I guess I'm done with this video for now. I think I'm just gonna like rest and let my mind process it, but it's actually in a really good place, which is why I think I'm getting like a little bit like I want to work on it a lot because it's just so close, actually. And again, this is definitely the biggest thing I've ever done, so it's pretty exciting. I'm really excited to see how people are going to respond to this theory. I have no idea. Um, the last thing I'm going to do in here is actually take off some of the stuff that makes this old, like this Nango part. This is gone. I was thinking on the train today how my life seems boring, but it's because people don't know how exciting this is. I feel like I've actually been very, very excited this year. It's probably been the most exciting year of my life. It's just that, like, unless you really fill this niche, unless you really understand this niche, you have zero, like, way of comprehending how exciting my year has been. This is very, very, very exciting. Very exciting. And I'm very excited, particularly because I care so much. And now this is coming to a close. So it's actually been probably the most exciting year of my life in a weird way. It's just that nobody else can really relate to how exciting my year has been. So it's like, it never seems exciting to anybody else. And it just always seems kind of boring, where it's like, I have potentially solved like really, really massive issue. And soon people might be really interacting with my theory and all this stuff. And it's going to be really cool. But again, it's just like, it's a very niche type of excitement. So, yeah. Yeah, it's very like psychology centric excitement that I just don't think like sometimes people in my life can like really relate to. So when I just say I'm working on my paper, it's like you have the most boring life ever, but it's like, guys, I'm working on my paper. It's the most exciting thing in the world. Like you don't know because you don't know about this issue in psychology. Like if you knew about this issue in psychology, you would think this is the most exciting thing in the world too. I think it's getting more exciting now because I'm actually doing it. You get me? It's like, oh, I actually did it. And that's really shocking. And I think the more I'm seeing it, the more excited I'm getting because I'm just thinking of like, whoa, like how are people going to react? Is it going to be published? Like, are people going to be excited? Are people going to even read it? Like, where's it going to go? All these different things. And also just my own future. Like, I'm going to be a psychologist in this const way and like all these different things. And like, I'm going to have like a place within psychology of my own and like I don't know how that's going to look yet, but it's like I just feel like I see my future emerging for me and that makes me feel really excited. because this is a very big theory. Like it's really cool and stuff. And it's just like I just feel like no one can really relate to the excitement of my year where it's like I don't have a boring life. I actually have a very exciting life, but you guys will see after that this is exciting, or maybe like nobody will see. Like maybe nobody in my family will understand that this is exciting ever and it's just always going to be my job or something, but it's like this trust it's exciting. But anyways, okay, I'm done for today. Hello. I it's the next day. I'm severely hoping that this is my my last like major learning session. I've had to learn so much for this project. Yeah, today I literally even I went to work in the morning, my side job, and then I left and I walked to I have this church that I like to go to sometimes to just I like to update God and like pray and be like, thank you for this. I see how much this has grown, like, and then just tell God my problems, like what's going on. I've been going to that same place pretty much since I moved here, but yeah, so if I'm ever kind of like around it, I always go, but I was like, God, thank you for this, like I was asking for this and like I can't even believe how far in I am, but I'm really kind of stressed because I can't find this last little piece of my problem and it's making me nervous, which is the fact that the acetylcholine keeps like going up. There's like an extended release. And I just don't have enough information to know why that happens per se and how that would happen in acute stress and I get kind of nervous. So I did open some papers yesterday and I want to go into them and see if there's anything in them that will give me what I need. I heard the best tea at my side job today. My side job, so every like randomly I'll pick up a shift still at the hostel that I used to volunteer at. Just if I need some extra cash or if they ask me or whatever, I'll just pick up some spare shifts. And they just needed someone to do some cleaning for like 4 hours in the morning. Like literally just clean like the bathrooms, the kitchen, whatever, because somebody quit like really spontaneously. They always get the craziest people because it's a lot of times just people that need housing, so they volunteer to not have to pay rent. One of the another kind of cuckoo person quit, and it was perfect because right now I'm having like I'm just okay. There's just randomness going on with my job, so I'm a bit late to get my pay for the month. Okay, so I've been a bit broke since like the new year. Like I've been very broke, so I just took the shifts. I was like, whatever. Of my freaking hostel because the tea is always so funny. Like there's so much that's like I wish like I could demonstrate like the characters and like everything. But when I got there was one guy who was dating this girl and they both lived at the hostel. The guy was like our boss. He is like a freaking trip. You can actually hear him in my video of me working at my side job, and he was the one yelling at me because he's just insane. He's not mean, he's just insane, and he's just general. I don't know. There's a lot to him, but he was dating this one girl at the hostel who I actually made friends with because she was Brazilian, and we would practice. Well, I would practice my Portuguese, and she would speak to me, and we became friends. But she's like a bit older than me, but they were dating for like the longest time and they even moved out, but he continued to work at the hostel, not as manager, but like as like a maintenance man. And then he recently, within the last few weeks, no, like months, got fired for fighting one of our regulars. These two people I've known now for years because they both lived at the hostel and everything. So he fought one of our regulars who's a bit more like sane, I would say. Nobody there is sane, but he's more sane than this other guy. But anyways, and so they got into a fight because one of them owed one of them money. I have it in my head who I think it is. Both say the other owes money, but I'm pretty sure I know exactly who owes them money, but I might be wrong. But I think I know. Anyway, so they got into a really bad fight, and he got fired because he's a worker and the other guy's just a regular who's just a lot of people live at like they basically will live long term at a hostel to like save money and all this stuff because it's cheaper than rent and you get breakfast and everything. So this was one of these people. But anyways, so I just found out today, this is so freaking funny, that this girl, because they broke up, like the guy, so the crazy guy who was always yelling at everybody, and this girl, they broke up. And then it turns out that she started dating the regular who the guy just fought, but they weren't fighting for that reason. They were fighting for a completely different reason. But soon after, those two started dating, and I find that so freaking funny. But anyways, I was just like, no way they're dating right now, and they're like, yeah. So anyways, it made my day to hear that. I thought that was really funny, but okay, acetylcholine. It's like if you knew the people and like you knew the lore, like you would know that it's really funny, but it doesn't sound that funny when I just say it. Okay, so acetylcholine engages distinct amygdala microcircuits to gate internal theta rhythms. We're gonna like ChatGPT it up. I'm gonna really have it like explain thoroughly some papers for me. ChatGPT is there for me when like it's very new content and I need to learn some good some vocab. Honestly, good for her though. I don't want it feels mean even picking sides. I need to talk to her. I haven't seen her in so long. It feels mean taking sides, but honestly like it's a it's a little bit of an upgrade. No offense. No offense. Okay. She's so pretty too. She's really, really pretty. Like she's a baddie, to be honest. And she could really pull anybody. She's so pretty, but yeah. So I always thought the duo was like from the get-go, I was like, huh? Like what is happening here for them two? And then she finally broke up with him and I was like, period. Like, as you should, because like what's going on here when you're a baddie and this guy's I feel bad because it's hard to describe how each of these characters, it's like in a normal situation like I would find you insane, but it's like it's part of the weird found family vibes where it's like yes he is insane, but it's like at the same time like you know what I mean, like he would wash my dishes for me if I need to run for the bus, you know, it's like oh, but like at the same time it's like what's wrong with you, you know, it's that kind of energy when it comes to that situation. So it's kind of I feel bad being like oh like I don't know, but it's just like I feel like it was a good situation for her. I just feel bad because I don't hate him or anything. He's nice, but she's like way younger than him and like really, really pretty. So I was just like, okay. Yeah. Okay, so ACH releases these types of inner interneurons in the amygdala, allowing theta waves to occur, while these, which usually help generate BLA oscillations under normal conditions, are not involved. So it starts to make these things go off. So I think between all these, we'll hopefully find our answer. Because I was thinking, I guess the amygdala, maybe it stays more activated or something. Um, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna learn all this, and then I'm gonna go back to those studies and see like if I have a feeling. It's kind of hard to understand what to search because it's kind of a niche thing. So it's like I can't just search like ACH release after stress. Like it didn't really come up with anything. Some to CCK. Okay, I mean, well, that's really good information that the ACH basically supports emotional memory happening. Okay, so that's one. We're gonna make like a menu of different study abstracts and see like what's actually gonna be the thing that's gonna support me to the end of this thing. This is the other one. There's a lot of interaction between acetylcholine and the amygdala when it comes to this. Again, I'm so tired and lazy. We're just gonna. This is the kind of thing people think people are gonna do with ChatGPT. But I'm just gonna do it because I was like, I took a mini nap and everything. I was so tired when I got back. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, let me get my laptop. When the context is a better predictor of danger, the hippocampus releases more acetylcholine, and this is linked to specific patterns of this activation in the amygdala. That sounds really important. We also show that hippocampal acetylcholine levels directly control which type of fear learning occurs. Lowering acetylcholine in the hippocampus reduced context-based learning and instead caused. So this is the thing, is that if acetylcholine is high over longer, you're doing more context-based fear learning than the other group. I don't know how I would implement that, but that's cool. And instead caused the mice to learn from the tone, along with matching changes in amygdala activity. Increasing acetylcholine had the opposite effect. What? There's too much to unpack. I'm really tired. Like when it comes to this whole situation, it's gotten to a point of madness. Like it's like there's so much to learn and so much to unpack that I'm just sitting here like there's too much to uncover. This is like, you know what I mean? There's a lot going on here that's like this is amazing. It's like really useful to the overall concept, but it's like what's going to be useful to my paper? You get me? Like I could go on for ages, but that's why you have a like I can't put everything in one piece. Oh my gosh. Everything is so connected. Everything is like way too connected, but it's like, oh, this is so much. Cholinergic modulation of the basolateral amygdala regulates formation of emotional memories, but the underlying mechanisms are not well understood. Let's just put this in chat. I can't right now. I'm so tired, but I'm like, I cannot rest until I understand. Because if not, my project is a okay. My project is a flop. I'm trying to think of more funny tea for my job. This was when I first started working here, and I was like, is this I don't know, wait. I just try to think like should I tell like stories? When I oh my gosh, people are crazy at hostels. If you worked at a hostel, you would know people are so freaking annoying sometimes. One time this is when I first started working there. It was like such a fun intro. Basically, this woman decided like the bathroom was like occupied and it was nighttime and she would instead of waiting like she just noticed it was closed so she decided that she was gonna pee right next to the door of the bathroom and then thinking nobody would see she took her flip-flop and just like wiped it down with her flip-flop to like let it dry and spread it and then went back to her room. Little did she know we had cameras in that corner, and we could see that she was doing that. And so she very swiftly got kicked out. So that was insane, but it's like, what is wrong with you? People are so crazy. It's actually like, no. There's the other thing is there's like two amygdala types, I think. Physiological ACH caused a two-step effect at cortical inputs, a fast enhancement followed by slower suppression. In contrast, sustained increase suppressed cortical input. Actually, this seems really important. Suppressed cortical input only through muscarinic receptors and did not affect thalamic inputs. Muscarinic signaling also inhibited cortical inputs more strongly. So inhibition of cortical input dependent on this. Okay, let's ask questions because the fact that it's doing something different when it's a sustained increase, like that could be relevant. I bet you it's this. Oh, wait, no, I actually don't think it's this. Okay, when acetylcholine is released briefly, it has two effects or on signals coming from the cortex. First, it quickly boosts the signal, and then it slowly weakens it. When acetylcholine levels stay high for longer, it only weakens cortical signals and does not boost them at all. Signals coming from the thalamus are not affected by this prolonged acetylcholine. Acetylcholine reduces cortical inputs more strongly than thalamus. What does that mean though? Maybe let's look at the paper before we ask this little computer guy. But I have so many funny stories, but then I keep thinking like, is it bad to spill tea about the there's so many characters in this freaking play sometimes. Like this same guy who was dating this girl, and they were still dating when this happened. He used to live at the hostel, and he tried to bring. This was the craziest thing. Somebody had a dog, like that they were trying to sell. It was like a baby, kind of like pit bully thing. And on his birthday, he thought he was like, I'm gonna get myself this dog for my birthday and he paid for the dog. He brought the dog in for all of us to see into the hostel, and we were like, "What?" like it was really cute. Like I was petting it, and then he was like, "I'm gonna keep it here," and we were like, "What? Like what? You're gonna keep this dog in this hostel?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna like don't tell anybody." Granted he was like manager at this point. This was shortly before he got downgraded, but he was manager at this point, and he was like, "I'm gonna keep the dog here. Like he's gonna live here." And we are like, "Are you insane?" And he was gonna keep the dog in his room, and then like he was like to let it go out. He was gonna put it on the roof. Like there's like a roof area, and that's insane. But then also like not allowed in any way, shape, or form. And the other managers were like, no, that's not gonna happen. And like they were like, but he was like convinced that he was gonna keep it there. And so he snuck it around for like quite some time. Like he just didn't tell, like he just decided like no, it's gonna stay here. And every like his other friends who worked at the hostel would like walk the dog in the mornings. This was like years ago. Like this was like 2 years ago now. So this is the hostel has changed very much since that time. It got like, it has changed. It was kind of like crazy when I first got there, like this is like a fever dream kind of energy. Now it's more like okay, like it's just a little bit more normal, not perfectly normal, but more normal than all this. But yeah, and then like one of the managers reached out to me and she was like, "Be honest, is the dog still there?" And I was like, "I'm not gonna lie to you, it is." And then they made him like remove the dog and he had to sell it to somebody else that he knew. But the only reason I snitched is because I was like, this poor dog is gonna get to be a very large dog. Like it was like a baby like pit bull. I was like, there's just absolutely zero way it's and ethical at all for this dog to be here in their tiny room and like living in this hostel is just like a no-no. I only did it for the dog's well-being. I was like, there's just no way that this is gonna be a good life for the dog. So I did say like, yeah, it is here. But yeah, very soon after that, he did get downgraded from manager to like maintenance guy. Did he ever stop acting like the manager? No, he didn't. But did his girlfriend want the dog to be in his room? No. No, she did not. She honestly put up with a lot. Like, yeah, now I hear she's getting spoiled with $500 gifts and things and purses and stuff. So good for her, as she should be. It was definitely not like that before. I'll tell you that for a fact. I don't feel like thinking right now. Like, I'm actually really lazy looking at this. I just have many questions. I just feel like something's gonna fall apart here and I'm nervous. Well, I mean, it's annoying because, like, yes, all of this is relevant and yes, all of this plays a part. And, like, all of this, like, I could explore this for like decades. Like, there's so much here, but it's just like, what do I do with this project right now? Okay, because what it's saying, okay, so acetylcholine briefly boosts important cortical signals. So a short burst of acetylcholine can momentarily strengthen signals coming from the cortex, which carries detailed conscious information. This could help the amygdala detect important or meaningful cues like sight, sound, or sight that predict danger. Prolonged acetylcholine quiets cortical input. When acetylcholine stays high, it suppresses cortical input to the amygdala, which may prevent the amygdala from being overloaded by too much detailed information and instead keep it focused. It's just like, this is probably true, but do I include all this? And it's just like, it's getting kind of hard. And it's just been so hard. I'm like, I don't want to do any more hard things. Like, this is whole already like too hard. Like, this whole thing is really difficult. It's like, now I'm lazy, but it's one thing missing. One thing missing right now. We're like probably one paper away from me like cracking this code, but I'm just like, okay, I guess we should keep learning this whole thing about the amygdala. Here's another one. Cholinergic signaling controls conditioned fear behaviors and enhances plasticity of cortical amygdala circuits. Is this relevant to my paper or am I in a whole different world right now? These are the things I wonder. I don't even know. All I know is like, why does the ACH stay up? Why does it stay up? It probably has nothing to do with any of this. Okay, this is the last one we're going to do for right now, and then I'm gonna like just be a couch potato for like 10 minutes. And I still have to finish my stupid R thing due on Monday. Can R go away? Can my intro to stats class go away? Like I'm begging, I'm begging. I love it, but it's like give me one more week. It's probably like I'm probably overcomplicating it at this point and literally in a whole other world of research that has nothing to do with, I mean, it does have to do with what I'm talking about, but not to this degree. Okay, so when researchers increase acetylcholine release in the BLA during fear learning, mice learned fear normally but had a harder time letting go of the fear. When acetylcholine activity was reduced during learning, mice showed weaker fear learning. My gosh. It's like everything is connected, but I don't know if it's relevant for my projects. I don't know. I don't know if this is gonna be the thing. Well, I'm gonna keep this here as a summary of many different papers. And like the info is here for me. My TV's about to turn off. We cannot have that. Okay, we're just gonna process. I tried to find some papers on like like how stress when stress doesn't stop. So I think this is actually maybe going to be more relevant paper. Recovery of the HPA response to stress. This is the thing though, is they said the acetylcholine release the second time, or acetylcholine release had nothing to do with the HPA axis. So I'm like, okay, so then it's not connected at all. This is what they were showing, that like it was going up. Basically, it made the acetylcholine. It took longer and longer to basically recover. I want to see how it went for this 3 hour one, but a major increase was already observed after 10 minutes of stress. A similar increase was observed after 3 hours. However, after chronic stress, a further increase in released ACH was observed. So it was going up and up, right? In the chronic stress, ACH was up for up to 2 days and recovered only by the seventh day post stress. What's getting me is I'm like, I know that there must have been some smaller like effect for the other groups, but they just weren't as interested, and like they just didn't notice that. And it's like, just give me information so I can demonstrate the same thing. This is why I do think that I would see that, because when one of the trauma model theories, or like not theories, no, like observations, is basically that after a stressful situation, dissociation was like higher, and then after time, let's see if we can find a paper on that. Basically, like dissociation stayed up for like a period of days, and then over time it went away. So I'm like, my thinking is that it probably like that effect was up for a while, right? So we're back to dissociation. This whole thing is like, I feel like a freaking detective. It's like following any lead I can get. I want to know about right after the stressful situation. Because a lot of like, this is a thing, just because the stress goes away, you're not instantly like, oh, like, yippity doo dah, like, I'm back to good. Like, no, like, usually you're like, oh, well, that was crazy. So that's why I'm like, there's gotta be like a thing that's missing here. Like, that's what I'm looking for, but it's like, where is it? I want to know about dissociation like the day after you feel it. Like, where's information? I know that it happens because they mentioned it in the freaking paper about dissociation and the trauma model. Just like, no, I want to I want advice so bad. It's actually a shame that I'm really happy I got a second supervisor at all, but it actually, this is the thing, is that nobody in it, in like working in PTSD, agreed, not only because they were busy, but I think it just wasn't within what they believed their scope to be. But it's kind of sad because I'm like, I would actually love to talk to a trauma expert and actually ask a trauma expert, because like I did need that support, but it's just that like the trauma experts were like, I guess they were like, I don't know anything about computational modeling in acetylcholine, where it's like, I do need that, but like maybe like I need more of like this question. And it just like, it kind of sucks because I don't really have that voice in my project. So it kind of like, it's like, I want to ask, like, what would you search to find that? Like, do you know anything? But like, I just don't have anybody to ask. I'm actually going insane. I've heard this concept multiple times. I've mentioned this before, but when I was in my actual trial, Title IX trial, I had an expert witness, and she was like a psychologist, and she mentioned that people try to ask. Uh, there's so many ways that I'm seeing this, and I just don't know what to search. But they try to ask. They tell police officers not to ask details of the situation immediately after like the crime, essentially, because like they tell them to ask a few days later, or like a little while after, because those stress chemicals are like still up, so your brain is still kind of shut down, and so people usually don't have a full scope of what happened, or aren't as accurate until like a little while later. See, I know this, and I'm just trying to figure out like, how do I represent that, and where is that, and like what is that? Because I think that's what's happening in the rats. I think it's just getting more and more. And I think these researchers, I want to go fight them. Tell me the information for that, for the other rats. But I don't think they really had like as much of the, I think they just didn't really have like the tech for that. And so now I just want to fight them. Like, why wouldn't you think that somebody like 20, 30 years later would want to know that? Like, was the ACH up for like, I don't know, 20 minutes after? Like, what was the deal? The other paper kind of had, this is like, I was thinking like, I need to detach from these, but I'm just trying to figure out like because these are the only situation that is this whole thing stupid? Did I leave myself down a really stupid path? Like I'm really just like annoyed at myself and annoyed at my research right now. Like you see so many like multiple papers had this effect right after the inescapable stress, okay? That the acetylcholine took longer to go down. There's just so much going on here. I'm just really annoyed. And then it went right up after, and it's like, why is this happening across the board? What's going on? And this is like my hardest challenge, actually, of the whole paper. Like, I feel like the first part I got it in a second. Why is it happening? The sharp wave ripples, like easy peasy. That took me like a week. Now here we are, and it's like this is like the hardest problem of my freaking study, and it's just like, ugh, I'm going insane right now. I don't know how to represent this, and I don't have enough information to know. I want to find where's that acetyl. I found a more updated. You see, look, there is like a thing. This is a thing. Post stress recovery of this HPA and glucose is a marker of stress intensity. So that is a thing. But what's driving me insane, and that's what I was saying that I started freaking out in class, is that I read this one and it was saying that changes in brain dopamine and acetylcholine release during and following stress are independent of that axis. So yeah, it's like doesn't it's true, but it doesn't help me. And this is why they mention it. When this acetylcholine went up the second time, this is what's really interesting, is that this kind of paper is a thing that you do with another person. It's like I want like a partner in crime so bad right now. Like that would make this whole thing so much better. It's like I just don't have that, so I'm just going insane. This is why people collaborate. You get me? And now I'm just going insane just looking at this. Like, how do I do this? Because like I just feel like I'm blanking. But basically, what they said, obviously, so after they left, there was that second hit of acetylcholine. They said, in particular, since the end of restraint may be considered as a rewarding experience, the present results are consistent. Okay. While corticosterone, so that's like cortisol, levels were elevated during the whole stress period, they decreased towards basal levels as the animals were released, thus displaying a trend opposite of that ND8 and ACH. So I think what they're saying is that like when the animals were released, even though the ACH went up again, it the cortisol stayed down. So that wasn't stressful for them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going insane. I think my whole project may have been a flop, and I may have just gone down the stupidest path ever. Is one possibility, or I'm just missing something, and it's really driving me crazy. But I know that this must be true because the more stressful it got, the ACH stayed up in the rats, and this was a consistent pattern. So I'm like, I know that this is the case, and I'm going kind of insane. And this was in multiple papers. So, but failure is not an option at this point because I'm already too far in. I already have like everything together. I just need that piece, and it's really driving me up the freaking wall. We're gonna take a break. See, this is what the stress eating is for. It's like this is a stress eating moment. I don't know. We'll figure it out, but for now, I guess I'll just watch TV and like stare off into space. All right, it's the next day, and I really I was really stressed about this whole thing like all last night, and just went to bed in kind of like a weird mood because I was like, why is my entire concept falling apart right as I'm like nearing the end? And I was really irritated. But I had a thought this morning. You're about to see how many papers I have pulled up. Like they just keep growing and growing. But I thought, so basically one of the reasons that they predicted in because I know this is true. This is the thing is that's irking me. It's like I know this is right. Because in chronic stress, the acetylcholine, they did show that it kept going up and up the more the stressor was like the higher the stressor, and then it was up for like it was showing signs that it was up elevated for a period of like 2 to 7 days after the stressor. Okay, so I'm like, I know this must be the case, but I was like, how is this happening in an inescapable stress format? And then this morning I was just reflecting and reflecting. I was like taking the whole mechanism apart in my head, and I was like, I need to ignore. I was like, do I ignore that post stress bump essentially in these papers, but then I was like, it's such a repeated thing, like it's such a consistent pattern that I was like, I don't know if I can, because in every situation you would leave the inescapable stressor and then the acetylcholine will go like that. So I was like, I was just taking it apart in my head and being like, how does this work? Just like in every possible way. And then I thought one thing, I thought maybe because I think I remember reading this in a paper that, and this is kind of what they said in these chronic stress papers, that the reason that's going up like that is that your brain starts to prime itself for the idea that maybe more stressors would come. Like it's like, let's just stay elevated in case more stressors happen. And they very obviously showed it in those papers, but the thing is that they weren't as interested in like, they were doing, I think, microdialysis. So this paper is kind of old, so they just didn't have as much, I think, the technology to get like the minute kind of minute by minute play by play that they did in another paper. And so they just didn't have that comparison. But I thought, what if your brain is just more primed for novelty because of the stressor? And I did ask ChatGPT. Basically, my thinking was, I feel like I asked this question because I read it in one of my papers. So I'm gonna go back through my papers and see where I can find this. But I was just thinking, basically that like your brain is still in stress mode, even though the stressor is gone. So it's like, okay, if something else happens, then we're hyped up. There's a lot of these types of patterns in a lot of different stress papers. So it changes the way that your brain reacts to later stress. So I asked this question because the reason I ask questions on ChatGPT isn't to give me the solid answer because I don't trust ChatGPT to that degree, but just to see, like, get some information that will help me search for papers. Look how many papers I have open. I did a lot of just like paper, like what's going on here? Like I have a lot of different things open that I was just perusing different papers and just being like, but I think I was just like, I need to go back to my baseline and think more. So I basically just used ChatGPT to give me ideas of like, okay, this is what I could search rather than the answer, because there's a lot of different things here I could go down. I actually started searching at some point. You can see the papers up here. I started thinking through like the different mechanisms, and I was like, I know that I read that the reason acetylcholine is up when the amygdala is like activated is that it sends out this chemical right here, norepinephrine, for a period of time. Like it releases that, and that tells the acetylcholine to go up. I thought maybe that's like up somehow. And then I was trying to search on that end, but I think I was just getting like stressed last night, and I had to FaceTime a friend and stuff. So yeah, but they did mention this, but I need to actually see if there's an actual paper about this. Because I was thinking the amygdala would get activated again. And if this is elevated, that like points to that. And then this is the other thing that they said is heightened salience detection. In both situations, that would be the amygdala. And I read in papers that in stress, LTP in the hippocampus goes down, but LTP in the amygdala goes up. So the amygdala is more primed for learning. So that might be my issue, because what I was thinking with these papers is that these inescapable stress rats were like, okay, they went through the inescapable stress, they got accustomed to it over the hour. By the end of the hour, they had gotten accustomed to the restraint stress. But when they left the restraint stress, maybe it was like very like their brain was very primed for novelty. And so then it was like really high up again because a very novel situation happened, but this one wasn't stressful. And so like it went down. That was my thinking. But I just thought that they might be more like you're on edge. You know, like if something bad happens to you, you're still on edge after. I thought like it might just be an equivalent of they're on edge. And so it's like any new thing is like, whoa, that's really arousing. So I kind of think that's how I'm going to go about it. I think that's going to come down to the amygdala, and the amygdala I know making is making more LTP. I just don't, I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that in my experiment as well. Like, do I make them go through another novelty or something? I don't know. And then I don't know, there's just like a lot of confusing factors right now, but that's how I think I'm gonna go about it. And I need to close my like 30 papers that I have up here. You see, I have like post-stress recovery, dissociation after stress, symptoms of dissociation, like all these different things. I have like a lot of papers open from last night. And some of them might be useful, but I think that that's probably like the thing. There's a lot going on here. I don't know, but I'm happy to have, in theory, solve this one problem. What's interesting is that in these rat studies, so what they were saying is that, for example, in this one, even though after they left a stressful situation, the ACH went up again to the fact that they had left, but the corticosterone did not go up, so that's cortisol, so meaning that they weren't stressed per se by the situation. But what I did read is in another paper is that after an inescapable stress or in chronic stress situations, what your brain does is that it overproduces cortisol at first, but then when you get exposed to another stressor, it over inhibits the cortisol. And I think that could be what's happening as well. What they were saying is it could have been like a pleasurable experience to escape, but I think that it could be that too, where you basically your brain over it's like it was over producing the corticosterone through here, and then in the next one it was over inhibiting the corticosterone even though the acetylcholine went up. These are possibilities. I think I kind of solved it. I think that's probably what's happening. But again, it's like a lot of technical stuff and I need to figure out how to squeeze it all into my model. Okay, we're actually going to start to try to incorporate that idea and see how it fits in the context of my paper. My paper is actually starting to get pretty solid. This is where I was going to talk about the amygdala, this arousal part. I just think that makes the most sense out of every theory that I could have. There's backing for that. But let's see if there's enough papers that actually say that. This is what I was reading in another paper that is already on my iPad. I just need to hunt it down. So, stress enhances fear by forming new synapses with greater capacity for long-term potentiation with the amygdala. So, the amygdala wants to learn what's stressful so that it can be more prepared next time. Essentially, that's sort of a weird explanation. But when you're in a stressful situation, it starts to trigger the LTP, long-term potentiation in the amygdala, so that it can kind of learn and grow and everything. So what I read in another paper, I think this might be the exact paper. I wonder if it is. Basically, LTP in the hippocampus, so the part of us that like makes memories and forms memories, it starts to weaken. So there starts to be less LTP in the hippocampus because of stress, but the amygdala actually grows. So in this one, rats subjected to chronic immobilization stress, they start to form these silent synapses. So stress leaves its mark in the amygdala by generating new synapses with greater capacity for plasticity, thereby creating an ideal neuronal substrate for affective disorders. So that's kind of like my roots idea theory for this next part of my paper. I think there's something like that happening. And that's why the rats are more primed for stressful situations. And then the more the chronic distress is happening, like in those chronic stress rats, they're more, the ACH is going up. It would kind of have to be the amygdala versus the HPA axis because one paper showed that the HPA axis was not responsible. But the thing is that acetylcholine goes up because of novelty, and basically, if ACH is going up, it's most likely because the amygdala is getting impacted, like it's getting like it's on. Look at this, how perfect! Oh my gosh. Okay, so in the paper it said that the ACH was going up, but not the corticosterone. So electrolytic lesions of the amygdala effectively block the adverse psychological and behavioral effects of restraint and tail shock stress without impeding the increase in corticosterone secretion to stress. So these are the two different things at work, right? Because the amygdala is doing one thing and the corticosterone is like in a whole different world and they're not connected. And so these are like two dissociated situations. So let's start to I'm just going to sort of rough draft it in. Okay, this was a quick turnaround. I really wanted a quick turnaround. I was like, I don't feel like sitting here and like spending 10 more months on this. Okay, so here we go. I mentioned that one paper, so let's actually go ahead and before I do this thing that I do where I forget to put the actual paper in, we're gonna just roughly put in a okay. So electrical electrolytic lesions of the amygdala effectively blocked the adverse physiological and behavioral effects of restraint and tail shock stress without impeding the increase in corticosterone secretion to stress. Okay. So in the inescapable stress study, acetylcholine went up again after the stressor in multiple papers, my rough draft language, but was demonstrated to be separate from the HPA axis as corticosterone did not go up. This implies that arousal, so that amygdala to NE to ACH, has a separate function than the HPA axis, though both play a role in stress. But the fact that the ACH was up does signify that the rats were aroused, and thus that the amygdala was activated. I think yes. So we got two separate things going on here. Whoa, that was like a big shift. That took a lot of thinking. That took a lot of like a few days of stress and just being like, what's happening here? I was like, did my entire thing just fall apart or no? Okay. So behaviorally, so an intact amygdala is necessary for the expression of the modulatory effects of stress on hippocampal LTP and memory. We're gonna just copy paste in. Sometimes you get all stressed about a certain thing, but it just makes your work stronger. And I just feel like that happens to me a lot where it's like, oh my God, everything is falling apart. And it's like, no, that's gonna make your work stronger. You just gotta like relax and think. Okay, we're gonna read this abstract and I'm gonna go in. Results showed that B, so the basal amygdaloid nucleus, I just keep getting into these pits of despair for some reason that this isn't like accurate enough or something, or like this is just too hard. It's nice because this paper actually talks about early and late LTP, but not in the hippocampus, unfortunately. Actually, you know what? What I've been doing recently is I've been getting too stressed, like way too stressed about this, and just feeling like kind of scared that everything's falling apart. And what I learned this before I moved to London, and it seriously changed my life. Like somebody said this online or something, that sometimes I saw this on Pinterest. People get so obsessed sometimes with doing more and more and more and just taking action towards their life. But sometimes it actually works better, or you can get somewhere faster by stepping back, aligning with what you want, and then coming back to it and getting like mentally aligned with the thing that you need. Um, it was talking about like professional stuff, right? Where like for example, sometimes I this has really helped me in my work life where it's like sometimes like when you're applying to like hundreds and hundreds of jobs and like you're not getting anything, where people often respond by going and being like, okay, I need to like keep like pushing, work, right? Where it's like sometimes you need to take a step back, align, like get more think like take a step back and actually think and think like where's my energy right now? Am I feeling like I'm in a good energy professionally? Am I actually applying to jobs that actually make sense for me? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And like actually take a break completely from what you're doing and then come back and you'll see better results. And I think that that was actually what I did last night is I completely stopped and just I chilled. I watched a movie with my friend, made chicken. I've been reading the Bible at night and actually, again, not to be corny, but it has been helping me because it's been talking about faith and I was like, I really needed that. I'll tell you what I've been reading recently that's been helping me emotionally. I always feel kind of awkward sharing my like like my personal spiritual life because I'm like, I don't like, you know what I mean? Maybe it just doesn't it's just a personal thing, but I'll just read you what was resonating for me last night. And I've been going to bed at peace. I started reading the Bible at night like 2 days ago that I got a Bible from my grandparents for Christmas. And it's like sometimes you kind of just need that word of advice at night. And I've really been going to bed at peace. And I'll tell you what I've been reading that like it helped me get in the mentality for this. Again, I just feel awkward sharing my like religious practices sometimes, but it's like you can just take it for what it is. Let me get my Bible. Where I'm like, okay, I know that this is what I was meant to read before I went to bed, and then I'll just like go to bed like totally at peace in myself. And it's been just really helpful for me emotionally because I just needed that kind of advice, I think, recently. And this has been such a spiritual journey for me. I think I was just like, I've been needing a little bit of like spiritual guidance with it. And it's kind of a hard thing to know like who to ask for advice sometimes. But the thing I read the other night that was helping me. Okay, this is Matthew 5:25 to like 31. This is actually, after I read this, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I needed to hear tonight. And then I just fell straight asleep. Therefore, I say to you, don't worry about your life, what you'll eat or what you'll drink, or about your body, what you'll wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds in the sky. They don't sow seed or harvest grain or gather crops into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than they are? Who among you by worrying can add a single moment to your life? And why do you worry about clothes? Notice how the lilies in the field grow. They don't wear themselves out with work and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon in all of his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. If God dresses grass in the field so beautifully, even though it's alive today and tomorrow and it's thrown in the furnace, won't God do much more for you, you people of weak faith? Therefore, don't worry and say, what are we going to eat? Or what are we going to drink? Or what are we going to wear? Gentiles long for all these things. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. Instead, desire first and foremost God's kingdom and God's righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, stop worrying about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I was like, oh my God, you're so right. And I fell asleep after that. And I was like, yeah, I feel like God's gonna give me what I need with this. And I feel like this was such a need for me emotionally, and I felt hesitant going down this path, but I feel like my definition of who I was following changed along the way, where I was like, the universe is sending me down this path where it's like I came to see it as God, and then it was nice to have changed my perception or my framework, because then I actually had like um guidance in a book and a community, and that really supported me. But I was like, I really needed that, because it's like, to me, this is like what I need to give to the world and what I have to offer the world. And it's like an important part of like my soul mission and my direction in life. And I was just sitting here worrying, like, what am I going to do? And it's like, yeah, I feel like this is like it'll get there for me. And like, I don't need to sit there and think about it and ruminate over it and all this stuff. And so I went to bed so at peace after that. And then after that, it was just going through all these different stories of all these different miracles and things that were happening. There were so many things that were hitting. Like, it was every time he says, like, talking about people of weak faith, I was like, oh yeah, I just need to really have stronger faith. Like, he was talking about calming a storm. It's like, when Jesus got into the boat, his disciples followed him. A huge storm arose on the lake, so that waves were sloshing over the boat, but Jesus was asleep. They came and woke him, saying, Lord, rescue us, we're going to drown. He said to them, why are you afraid, you people of weak faith? I was in that Lord, we're going to drown energy when I was reading that, because I actually read this, I think, last night. And that last night was when I was really freaking out about this and just being like, how am I going to get to the end? Like, how am I going to, like, it seems like my thing fell apart and I was really worried about it. Yeah. It was like, Lord, rescue us. We're going to drown. That was me. So it was like, he said to them, what are you afraid? Why are you afraid, you people of weak faith? Then he got up and gave orders to the winds and the lake, and there was a great calm. The people were amazed and said, what kind of person is this? Even the winds and lake obey him. And again, I was like, I just need to have faith. The other one, these are like all highlighted in here. When Jesus heard this, he was impressed. He was talking about some gentile and the people following him. I say to you with all seriousness that even in Israel, I haven't found faith like this. I say to you that there are many who will come from east and west and sit down to eat with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, but the children of the kingdom will be thrown outside into the darkness. People there will be weeping and grinding their teeth. Oh, because somebody came to him and asked him, like, can you heal me? And he was very like, Jesus was very touched by the faith that the man had in him. And he said to the centurion, go, it will be done for you just as you have believed. And his servant was healed that very moment. It was just going through like a lot of anecdotes like that. And it was actually just helping me, because it was like reminding me that I just need to have faith, and that sometimes like you get so worked up and in your head about like, it's not happening, it's not working, it's not this and it's not that. And it's like, just all you need to do is just believe, have faith, like relax, stop worrying about it, and that God is gonna bring that answer for you that you need. And he just kept repeating, this was the last one I'm gonna mention because this is what I read right before I went to bed last night. I feel like I'll hit that point where I'm like, okay, this was the one that I needed tonight, and then I'm just like off to bed. But it was the healing of two blind. I feel so awkward like sharing, but this is just what I was. It's my little diary. So this is what I was doing last night before I went to bed. So it's like Matthew 8:27. As Jesus departed, two blind men followed him, crying out, "Show us mercy, Son of David." When he came into the house, the blind men approached him. Jesus said to them, "Do you believe I can do this?" "Yes, Lord," they replied. Then Jesus touched their eyes and said, "It will happen for you just as you have believed." Their eyes were opened. Then Jesus sternly warned them, "Make sure nobody knows about this," but they went out and spread the word. Okay. And then I went to bed, but I think it was the repeating of like the idea of like you with like your weak faith, and then also talking about like it'll happen just as you believed and all this stuff, and like it will like the thing that you need will be brought to you. I think that's just been like a comforting message, I think, as I've gone to bed at night because I've been really, really worried about this project. And this is the number one thing that I've asked God for. Like, you don't know how often I've begged God for this project to be done. Please, God, like all this stuff. And it's been hard because I feel like my faith got, not my faith, but like my faith in the universe got a little bit disrupted through everything that happened in college. And there were so many things that I wanted that kind of got messed up or crumbled or just didn't get done. And it gave me this weak faith in myself that I couldn't, like, oh yeah, so this is going to be another disappointment. This is just going to fall apart. This is going to be another one of those things that I put so much work into and it doesn't happen for me because that happened with like the Title IX trial. That happened with my undergraduate thesis because I was struggling so bad. And I had a lot of loose ends in college that just didn't get finished, even though I poured so much of like my heart and my energy and my care into it, like a lot of things across the board. And I think that I'm sometimes found myself in this project. It's been like a rebuilder of my faith, like so much. And it's really taught me to have faith in God as well to move here. And so many times I was like, this is the end of the line for me. And I feel like I just prayed so much and it really like things kind of came about in like an interesting way, or I just felt yeah, I just felt like it taught me to keep having that faith in myself. And I'm telling you, I beg God for this like on the daily, like please let me publish this paper. I just want to do this. I just wanted to find like the root cause of this and all this different stuff. I just want better for people that suffered what I did, like all these different things. And I really beg God like every day, like please. And I'm not gonna lie, God has to have a lot of patience with me because sometimes I get mad at God. I got really mad at God last night. Like I kind of really like I was like, God, you suck. Like I really got mad, and I know that's supposed to be wrong, but I feel like God is truly like a kind father who understands, and I ask forgiveness. But I was like, I get mad sometimes and I'm like, hey, like what's wrong with you? Like why is this my life? Even though I try to have faith. And yeah, I think it's been like a good rebuilder of my own faith and just continuing to work on my own work and trusting that the answers will come to me and trusting that that God is leading me in the right direction, and everything has been so useful. Yeah. I think I also felt inspired to share this because it was also I was reading this morning about how like you're supposed to share and you're supposed to be strong in your sharing of your experiences. But yeah, that's kind of how I felt, and it's just been like reading the last few days of Bible has just been a reminder for me to be like to have that faith and to trust that God loves me and is there for me and God's gonna bring the answers that I need. Okay. So yeah, anyways, maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but I guess that's just where my head has been the last few days. And it's good because I woke up today and I felt inspired, and I feel like this is really like probably gonna be the right direction forward if I can read and make it all make sense. If not, I'm gonna cry. but yeah, I was really, really sad last night. And then I read that and I was like, yeah, right. You need to have like, what's wrong with you? Like, have faith, and even if you don't see it, like, it's gonna come your way. So okay, I just need a brief minute of like motivation, hyping myself up. You know what's funny is I started this YouTube channel because I just used to make hype up videos for myself on my MacBook, and I would like pretend my future self was like telling me things and inspiring me and all this stuff. And then yeah, I just liked having them. And at one point I started putting them on my YouTube, and I just was like, oh, this makes me happy and like I should start a YouTube. Okay. I cannot explain how stressed I am. I have an art exam due on Monday, are being a program for learning how to code and do statistics. I am so stressed, and you know when you procrastinate because you are worried that you're not going to do well, and then the freak out just continues and continues. Basically, that's been me with R recently, and I just opened it and like started the assignment because I was reminding myself of freshman year of college. Basically, I was procrastinating so hard on this paper and like so hard I did not want to sit down and do it. And then it turns out that I actually made a 100 on the paper, and I was one of two students in the class to make 100 on the paper. It was an intro to philosophy class. And I was reminding myself of that today. It's like just because you're procrastinating doesn't mean you're procrastinating because you're bad at what you're doing. But then I opened art and I got really nervous. Like I was actually like, oh, this is more understandable than I thought. But then I can't figure out if I'm supposed to turn this one thing into a factor or not. I can't figure out there's like trials with numbers. It's like trial one, trial two, trial three. And I thought like to turn it into a factor, and then I got in my head and all this stuff, and I'm just stressed and just feeling like I'm gonna fail. And I just like I've been feeling so trapped by school and by this like assignment and then by this project and by this everything, and it's so bad. But okay, I'm gonna say it here because I used to like make these so I would watch them in the future and then like send myself a message that like I did better, like you know what I mean, like I grew, or like oh I actually solved that problem, or like that actually did happen, and all this stuff. Like they were like my motivation. So my future self is watching this in the future and telling me that I passed my art class. I don't need to get an amazing grade, but I do need to pass. And my future self was watching this and she's telling me that the paper is done and I published it, and she's telling me that I passed R. It's just all I need. It's just that when your brain starts going into stress mode, it can't think anymore. And then it's like that's when you're really screwed because it's like this wouldn't be hard if I would just calm down. But anyways, I might actually edit this video in the morning and be done with it so that I can transform into a new stage of this project, but also because I think this video is getting long. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed my random lore.